I hope you're ready for another dose of Severance theories because I've got some fine theories to discuss over the next few minutes. In this episode, we're going to cover more Petey related theories, but this time we're going to take a look at some of the keepsakes he left behind, namely the map of the severed floor. Worry not, there are theories to discuss in this video.
Anything less would be uncivilized.
And as I mentioned in the last Severance video, we're going to take a look at a theory submitted by you, one of the fellow members of the illustrious tinfoil gang, straight from the comment section. Before we begin, be warned, we will be doing some deep analysis of certain events of the season, so if you'd like to keep your knowledge of this show to a minimum, perhaps because you have not seen it yet, then now would be the time to save this one for later. I'd like to thank these beautiful people for deciding to support the channel through Patreon. You guys make it easier for me as a creator to not have to worry so much about jumping through the flaming hoops that is the YouTube content guidelines. Thank you so much for your support. And I do want to plug the Discord channel. If you want to check it out, link is in the description. I have not been there as much as I'd like to be lately. Been really busy, but I plan on spending a lot more time there in the future. So hopefully I see you there. Well, that's it for the intro. Tinfoil tight. All right, let's dive. In a past video, we established a few things about Petey's time at Lumon, specifically around him deciding to get reintegrated by Ruggabi and working with her to bring down Lumon from the inside. We know that Petey had to pretend to be severed for roughly 2 weeks before he started to think Cobell was onto him, and then he made a run for it. We get a glimpse of Petey in a flashback sequence, and what appears to be some office banter between him and some work buddies, one of which is Mark. One hint that we are given that suggests that we are witnessing an integrated Petey is when he says this.
Hey, what's that, Sudoku?
It's nothing.
What were you drawing?
You getting back to work in Cubist form.
Cubism is a popular abstract art form from the early 20th century, something that Petey should not have been able to recall in a severed state. Mark has no idea what Cubism is, as he shouldn't, but his outie most likely would have. Cubism is something most people have heard of. I'm sure you've heard of it, but someone with an academic background like Mark is bound to have some familiarity. Which is why this sequence may be indicating that something is off. As if that wasn't enough, the more obvious clue is when we see Petey secretly drawing up a map of the floor as part of his intelligence gathering for Ruggabi's resistance. Now, this map is weird to say the least. It's got all kinds of scribbles and symbols that are hard to decipher. This map is not meant to be taken as a literal layout of the floor, mainly because the actor who plays Petey, a Mr. Yul Vasquez, some of us prefer to call him Bob,
Who doesn't want to wear the ribbon?
took some artistic license in the creating of it. Turns out he's a decent painter in real life, and you can see the influence of his abstract style in the map itself. That said, there is some value in examining the map for clues, because the ideas expressed in it could shed some light on what the hell is going on down there. The best way to look at this image is to focus on the ideas that are expressed in it and not spend too much energy on the details that might not mean anything to anyone but Yul. So we're going to tackle this one by looking at all of the madness on this map and try to make some sense of what it might be trying to convey. I want to start with the lower left here. We see now the familiar phrase, "We're here because we're not all there." And above that, we see what looks like the depiction of a head wearing a crown. I'm not going to mess with that one because I have no idea what that means, and I've tried. Taking the play on words at face value though, and assuming nothing, you would probably interpret this saying to mean that the members of MDR are working there because they are not okay, psychologically speaking. We've all heard the phrase "not all there" before, and it is often meant to describe someone as not mentally fit. The members of MDR are dealing with deep traumas, and this is somehow important to the goal at Lumon. The fact that Petey can come to this conclusion on his own while unsevered means that Lumon must be choosing people who are deeply troubled and likely exploiting this fact. And it's obvious to anyone who's paying attention. The exact advantage is yet unknown, but I don't think it's a stretch to say that this trauma is making them better at their jobs. Also, side note, Petey was kind enough to let us know that this map is not to scale and that it's for research purposes only. Good thing we got that warning because, yeah. Anyway, moving over to the top of the image, we have a large area Petey simply calls mind. I found it interesting that Pete went out of his way to make it as large as he did, which we could infer as a sign of its importance or an estimation of the literal physical size of whatever it is. These squiggly lines drawn around it make me think of brain cells under a microscope, like a neuron or, a synaptic or,
What?
I'm not a brainologist, shocking I know, but it does look like a neuron. Also, this block-like shape could represent a chip or a processor, another symbol depicting an object that is often referred to as the brain of the computer. So this could be symbolic of a computer mind that is connected to and in control of everything. Maybe it just controls the severed floor, maybe it controls more than that, I don't know. Another popular and completely plausible reason for it to exist is that this is meant to house the severed minds of past Egan CEOs. I talk about this a bit in the Egan CEO video I did a while back. My main contention with this idea is that the technology would not have been advanced enough to capture the minds of the older CEOs. So I'm a bit reserved here. I do need some proof that Severance or some form of it was possible all those years back when transistors was still a new advent in technology. Who knows? This is supposed to be an alternate timeline, so history could be different. Maybe we'll find out in season 2. But I do think that the CEOs are being preserved somehow, but I can't say definitely. I guess we'll have to wait. I think overall, the message I get from this image is that there is an entire world down on this floor and a lot more people and departments that we do not know. The place is built like a maze, and that's probably by intention. And there's some kind of mind or presence on that floor that probably serves a very important role for Lumon. This is the perfect opportunity for me to introduce a theory that I found fascinating, and it's related to this idea. The theory posits that there is a large world hidden inside of Lumon, like an entire town or something. And Optics and Design's purpose is to make all of the stuff that goes into creating it. It never occurred to me before to wonder why Lumon would need such a massive O&D department with all of those printers. I mean, wouldn't it make sense for them to just buy everything on bulk on Alibaba or something? This is why we hear about seemingly random common items like axes and pictures being printed. From a certain perspective, it does make sense, especially when you consider that there are so many printers on this floor, indicating that Lumon is in the business of mass producing items for what would have to be a standing army or a stage world. Alright, so back to this map. Over on the right hand side of the image, we have the words that have the entire fandom in a tizzy. The phrase, "some people might live here." This is accompanied by some doodles above it, but below it we see little Monopoly houses encircled. We know that during the brief period that Petey was in Lumon as a spy, he must have seen other severed people during his explorations. The most popular inference here is that Petey is assuming that some innies never leave the building and live hidden away in some part of Lumon. I'm guessing that Petey met Gemma at some point and realized not only how odd she is, but that she disappears to another part of the facility he is not privy to, or at least that's how it appears. We cannot ignore our stickman friend over here, and the arrow is pointing to the houses, probably just a visual representation of the same idea. Some people might live here. Although I do think it's interesting that he uses these bolt-like symbols next to the head, another reference to mind and being connected to and possibly controlled by it. Now, moving over to the bottom of the image, we have the perpetuity wing represented. Nothing too crazy here, been here, done that, got the t-shirt. But then we do see this little oddity, the coil of doom. What? I'm gonna wager that ain't the official name. It's probably something Petey made up for it, but what is it? We get a reference to a coil with Sevy, the creepy ass Lumon mascot that looks like the love child of Clippy and a crack pipe. And of course, the actual chips have metal coils in them, probably acting like some kind of antennae. Could the coil be a transmitter? I've seen some theories out there that suggest that this is the case, which makes sense in a way. It's hard to say, but we do know that this place or device is connected to the perpetuity wing. Some people seem to think it is an EMP source, a failsafe that could render all chips useless in the case that, let's say there was a mutiny on the floor or a rebellion, they could just shut off everybody's chips just like that. Others say it's a power source, that it actually powers the chips. I'm trying to think back to every time I've said the word blank of doom in my life, and it's usually made in jest, but the term usually implies something less than desirable is about to happen. Doom is never good unless it's MF Doom, then it's sublime. When you look at the drawing, I get the impression that this coil is either a hidden pathway to something or an important device housed somewhere in the perpetuity wing. Another thing that caught my attention is that this map marks every place that we've seen so far in the show, except for one place, the team building. I don't believe we've ever been here. At first I thought the scene early in the season where MDR is doing that team building thing took place in this area, but I did a little investigation and I watched it again, and no, it's directly in the vicinity of where they work, where their desks are. So I'm not sure where this team building room is. So if you have any idea, get in the comment section and let me know, because I'm completely lost on this one. So, we've come to the section of the video where I will share a theory I liked from previous videos. This one is coming from John Locke. John, thanks for taking the time to share your theory with us. Let's jump straight into it. So John's theory is one that I've seen in a few places, and to be honest, it's one that I think could be true, but I don't believe I've covered this one before in the channel. So this theory hinges on the idea that Cobell and Charlotte are the same person, or that Charlotte is severed into Harm, sort of. Let me explain. Well, let's let John explain. John asked the question, what if she's not shipped in the typical sense, and instead she's Harmony Cobell while she's at Lumon, but she's Charlotte Cobell when she leaves the office? Interesting. They are still mother and daughter, and Charlotte is dead, but Charlotte is the digital version captured by the chip recording her life. The hospital bracelet we see says Charlotte Cobell, date of birth 3/17/44. The picture of the pigtailed girl at Myrtle Egan Camp is not Harmony, it's Charlotte. She would have been a child in the late 50s, early 60s, which is when I think this photo is from. Think about the differences in the character at work and at home. At home, she acts and dresses much older, and also wears the pigtails of her childhood. She's very maternal, as indicated by her actions with the baby. Harmony hates what was done to her by Charlotte, so she's interested in reintegration as a way to undo it. Charlotte is the Egan cultist, which is why she's desperate to save the company that just canned her. So, John, this is a great theory. Like I said, I've seen variations of this before that say that Charlotte and Harmony are somehow in the same body, and that Harmony is either trying to separate her out so that she can have her entire mind. And this is the reason why she is supportive of Lumon, because she needs for them to exist in order for her to accomplish her goal. But big picture, she's pro here. She just deals with Lumon because it's what she's got. And she's obviously has some background related to Charlotte and Severance, that she's trying to solve some problem, and she knows that Lumon is the key to solving this problem. Anyway, this also relates to what James Egan says to Helen at the gala. You'll be next to me in my revolving. He means literally next to him in the same head. Yeah, I'd bet a fair amount of money that that's what's happening, that I think all of the CEOs are housed in James somehow. One other thing that he says here that I think is important, he says that she, meaning Harmony, knows that Severance is capable of encoding a personality onto a chip, which can be inserted into another person, ultimately making the transferred person immortal, but she wants to know if it can be undone. And yeah, I don't know y'all, but I think it tracks. Remember, share your theories in the comment section. In future videos, I might share with the rest of the tinfoil gang. Special thanks to the subs, the regulars, and of course the patrons for your support. It's everything. That's it for this one, which is perfect because the edibles are just starting to kick in. Praise Kier, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Off you go.